Keep watching The Politics every Friday, 12 p.m. Eastern Time on New York Parrot TV, the voice for humanity.
Imagine a media platform that reshapes the conversation, empowers your voice, and redefines the Bronx community. Bronx Post, changing the reality, changing the narrative. For businesses, politicians, and government agencies, we offer targeted advertising solutions that drive results. Amplify your message. Reach the heart of the Bronx and beyond. Our platform connects you to the community. Learn more. Email info@bronxpost.com or call 718-892-5555. Visit www.bronxpost.com for breaking news and updates. Bronx Post, changing the reality, changing the narrative.
Welcome to Talking Politics. My name is Robert Press. I am a reporter. As you can see by my official New York City press card, I write for the Bronx Post, which, like this show, is part of Parrot Media Corporation. I also have a blog at www.100%.blogspot.com and Facebook pages 100% and what is going on in your neighborhood, in your community board, pardon me. As you can see, my co-host is...
Good morning, everyone. My name is Professor Anthony Rivieccio. I'll try not to be as fast as Robert. However, I do have to cover three lives. I am a current retired economic professor at both public and private universities. I am currently an income tax and financial advisor, as Robert would say, as showing my calculator. And I am a community activist, a long-term community activist, being the founder of the Northwest Bronx Democrats. Good morning, Robert.
And the views expressed on this show are that of the host or anyone commenting, any guests or anyone commenting at the bottom of the screen, and not necessarily that of Parrot Media Corporation. You're going to see both of us now since we're co-hosting the show. And let me go to the weather report. Today, Friday, the high should get up to about 45 after a cold spell last night. Saturday, 51, Sunday, 47, and Monday returns to 60. Now, Tuesday's high, this past Tuesday's high of 80 was a new record for the earliest in a new year that 80 was achieved.
So, Bob, the next time I want to walk out with my jacket, when's a good day next week to do that?
Probably Wednesday or Thursday. It'll get a little, back up into the 70s. Okay. Now, over this past weekend, there was demonstrations outside the Gracie Mansion where Mayor Zohan Mandani lives. There was an anti-mayor campaign. Then there was a anti-mayor campaign. And it appears that there were bombs hurled during the violent protest on Saturday, and there were explosive devices. New York City Police Commissioner Jessica Tisch said the bomb squad has conducted a preliminary analysis of the device that was ignited and deployed at a protest, and it is determined it is not a hoax device or a smoke bomb. It is, in fact, an improvised explosive device that could have caused serious injury or damage. A left-wing activist was detained by police after throwing the explosive during a protest anti-protest outside Gracie Mansion on Saturday. The explosive was thrown towards police and determined to be a potentially deadly IED, the NYPD said Sunday. Commissioner Tisch said that the two pro-Muslim demonstrators identified as Emir Balat and Ibrahim Kayami were arrested after the incident, with federal authorities now working with the NYPD. They said that bolts, nut screws were inside one of the homemade devices called the Mother of Satan. Law enforcement said that the exact...
Mother of Satan?
Yes.
I wonder what the name would be to the Mother of Satan. I wonder what that name would be.
Well, I understand that you might have gone out with a Mother of Satan in the past.
I might have, but I'm not a parent. You are. what would you call the mother of Satan?
What would I call the mother of Satan?
Yeah, as a parent, what would you call the mother of Satan?
I could give you a lot of things. I could give you current people that I know, but let's continue with this.
You know what's sad about that story, though, in my opinion, the saddest part of that story? You haven't indicated it yet, but these children, right? And I emphasize the word children, right? Because I'm 65. So these children are in their early 20s, right? The people you're talking about. And that to me is the saddest thing. We live in a sanctuary city, so I get very tired when people ask me, "Oh, Anthony, what's your social opinion on this, or what's your racist opinion on that?" We live in a sanctuary city, right? So we're basically saying all bets are off. What worries me is these are children. How are we teaching our children?
You're right. It's socialists that are in the schools that are teaching the children, and but Mayor Zohan Madami denounced white supremacist Jake Lang in a statement Sunday, saying hate has no place in New York City, but fell short of mentioning that the alleged bomb hurlers were part of the counter-protest. What followed it was even more disturbing. The mayor said violence at a protest is never acceptable. The attempt to use an explosive device and hurt others is not only criminal, it is reprehensible and the antithesis of what we are. Meanwhile, sources said cops returned to the scene, closed off East 81st Street and East 82nd Street at East End Avenue as they found a third such device inside a parked car there. They were fortunate that devices used over the weekend did not cause any kind of harm, which was certainly capable of really causing even death, Tish said. Devices like these have the potential to cause devastating harm, which is why the NYPD does thorough counterterrorism investigations and treats every incident of this kind with the highest level of urgency and care, and why we remain vigilant. Ballot of 18 of Langhorne, Pennsylvania, and Kaimi, 19 of Newton, Pennsylvania, are charged with attempted provisional of material support and resources to designated foreign terrorist organization, which carries a maximum of 20 years in prison. Use of a weapon of mass destruction, which carries a maximum sentence of life in prison. Transportation of... Wait. There's more.
When I was 19 years old, and if I was living with my parents, if I didn't have a good excuse for coming home after midnight, I would be scared of my mother's maximum sentence.
Well, there's more.
So that shows you, again, as I said earlier, 19, right? Children, granted, I'm talking 50 years ago, but where's the morality here,
Right. Well, there are three more charges that each carry 10 years in prison, up to 10 years in prison.
Oh, boy.
And the U.S. attorney will be prosecuting, not the Manhattan District Attorney, who probably would just let them go with a slap on the wrist. Now, let's go to Iran and what's happening in Iran. The bad news is that the U.S.-Israeli war with Iran has already spiked oil prices, which will ripple into the broader economy, which Anthony will get into in his next segment. The AAA data shows that U.S. gas prices at an average of $3.58, but that's a couple of days old, so it's probably more, $3.58, that is. And how does $200 a barrel of oil sound on the open market? That's what
you're actually 100% correct. That's what it was as of this morning. Continue.
That's what Iranian military leaders threatened. Intense regional fighting showed no sign of letting up as the United Kingdom agency said 3 cargo ships were attacked in or near the effectively shuttered Strait of Hormuz. Iran claimed that it completely controls the passageway. Attacks were reported across Israel, the United Arab Emirates, Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, Oman, Qatar. Wednesday, some of them attributed to Iran. Iran said it would go after banks and major corporations too as it moved into its heaviest operation yet. Israel launched strikes into Tehran and across Lebanon, where a new infantry battalion could further ramp up Israel's fight against Hezbollah. More than 1,800 people have been reported killed since the war began, mostly in Iran and Lebanon. Tuesday, Iran began laying mines in the Strait of Hormuz, the world's most important energy choke point that carries about 1/5 of the crude oil. The closure of the Strait of Hormuz has closed the largest supply disruption in the history of the global oil market, the International Energy Agency said Thursday. New York Times said Thursday. The New York Times reports. What one shipped about 20 million barrels of oil a day has diminished to almost zero. And in his first statement as Iran's new supreme leader, a cardboard cutout of Ayatollah Matami Khamenei said the strait would remain closed. There was no real live picture of him. It was just a cardboard cutout. Now, Americans' views on the wars have shifted since last week. A new Washington Post poll finds less opposition to military actions when they began, but more people prefer the strikes to stop. A steady majority say the Trump administration has not clearly explained the war's goals, and most say the number of U.S. casualties, including 7 service members, which I believe is now 8 or more, reported killed in action, is unacceptable. 2 U.S. sailors were treated for non-life-threatening injuries after a fire broke out Thursday on board an aircraft carrier USS Gerald R. Ford, a centerpiece of the Trump administration's war against Iran. Officials said the Navy acknowledged the incident in a statement, saying the fire occurred and was contained in the ship's main laundry facility and not as a result of combat. The statement said sailors are in stable condition. It did not specify the type of injuries expected. Now, as far as gasoline goes, Anthony, I paid.
Bob, if I could just stop you for just a moment.
Okay.
Just a slight correction. I understand that within the last hour or two, 2 more service people were shown as died. So that would now make the total of 8.
Well, that's what I said, 7 or 8.
Yeah, well, I just wanted to make that. I just wanted to clarify.
Now, just
let me also say really quickly. I have, socially speaking, a lot of mixed feelings about this. I have to say, in full disclosure, and I think some of the audience already knows that you're looking at a former U.S. Serviceman who is actually involved in that fight. During that time, I was a young child, 18, 19 years old, in a submarine, trying to get out of the United States, looking at Navy commercials on TV, thinking I'm going to the Bahamas and I'm going to pick up all these women. And all of a sudden, I'm 19 years old and I got a gun in my hand and I'm told, killed or be killed. And I'm on 30-day notice because our job was to go get those hostages. And we're on 30-day notice for a period of 3 months. And I can't even begin to tell you the stress around that time. Of course, the problem during that time is I'm talking late 70s, early 80s. And of course, that was, up teen centuries ago, right? So I have a lot of feelings about it. Personally speaking, I don't think we should be there. The serviceman part of me says, go get them all. Go ahead. You had a question.
Okay. As far as gas prices go, and we're going to segue over here into Anthony's segment, I paid $3.39 on Wednesday, and that should last me until about April, the way I drive, because I don't do any more driving, really.
Good for you.
So Anthony's going to take us up to the commercial, so take it away, Anthony.
Sir, and ladies and gentlemen, we're going to try to use this second segment for a variety of different things. Today, we're going to use it as what I call political economics. And when we talk about political economics in this segment today, we're going to talk about 2 things. Yes, we're going to talk about Robert's gasoline that he doesn't use too much any longer. But this is also the wonderful month of March. So we're also going to talk about the prices of income tax preparation. And we're going to talk about both of those subjects and how much they went up or down during the period of the last 3 to 5 decades. So, Robert, do you know how much the price of gas was in 1976?
1976. It was, well, I had a folks where I couldn't fit $5 worth of gas in my car.
The price of gas, now these are, of course, national averages.
I think it was about 49 cents a gallon.
I was going to say, now these are national averages. So the price of gas in 1976 was 59 cents.
Okay.
And that 59 cents on an inflation-adjusted basis today is equated to $3.25. I only say that now to tell you the last 30 years of the price of gasoline. And because this is a political show, let's make it a little controversial, right? Like many of the people in our wonderful room, Northwest Bronx Democrats, we're going to spill a little politics into it and just, we'll see where it all winds up. So when I talk about 1996, right, we're talking about the president being Bill Clinton. And during that time, gasoline was $1.26. And in 2006, which during that time was, of course, George Bush, well, at that time, it was $2.61. What was that difference, that 10-year difference? An average rate up of 52% or 5.1% a year. Keep in mind, the average rate of inflation from 1996 to today was 3%. So just remember the number I just said. So going into 2016, we had a president by the name of Barack Obama. And in 2016, gasoline was pumping. It was pumping down at $2.17. It went down 17%. And then today, 2026, we have a wonderful president by the name of Donald Trump, right? There goes the sprinkle of politics, right? And as you indicated yourself, Bob, you're absolutely correct. As of this morning, because I checked it this morning, it is national average is $3.58. The difference from 2016 to 2026, an increase of 40%. So if you put it all together and average that out for the last 30 years, that comes out to an average annual inflation rate of 5.06%. Remember what I indicated a minute ago. If you take that same rate of inflation and put that into the formula, that comes out at 3%. So inflation has been at 3% a year. The average price of gasoline has gone up on average at 5% a year. Well, any questions before I go to how much you're going to pay to do your income taxes?
You're forgetting one thing, Anthony. The price of oil or gasoline also increases the price of almost everything else. When you go to the supermarket, because they have to get to the supermarket by truck, which uses gasoline to go there. And you need electricity, which is, fueled by gasoline-powered power plants, mostly.
So then you would agree with this morning's economic results. I was going to announce them a moment ago, but I'll announce them right now. As you may or may not have heard, CPI, Consumer Price Index, came out this morning. It came out this morning at 0.4%. If you annualize that, that's at 4.8%. And of course, what you're indicating shows that the growth of our country is still flowing, but it is now flowing with inflationary overtones, especially compared to the last 30 years. Specific now to gas, right? Because of course now different products have different, numbers, right? So just specific to the price of gas, again, if inflation's at 3%, we've been paying on average 5%, even with that decrease, right? Even with that decrease. So now that can come down to one or two things. That can come down to economic policy, which you can talk about both Congress and our president, or you can talk about corporate greed, right? I always like to say the combination of both. You can figure it out, but that's a subject for another show. Let's talk about income tax preparation. Let's talk about a couple of different things about income taxes, and we'll just stay on prices. We won't talk about one of the reasons maybe why the federal government needs your money this year is because when you call up the IRS, Bob, nobody answers. Nobody answers because nobody's
there. No,
they have.
Donald Trump got how many tax agents?
Well, if you remember Doge, right? Doge took the IRS and literally cut it in half. So they're still announcing that they're going to get your refund to you in 2 to 3 weeks. Ladies and gentlemen, if you know your Virgin Mary prayer, please say it before you do your taxes. But let's talk about prices before the commercial starts. So in same year, 1996, we had a president by the name of Bill Clinton. Let's throw some politics in there, right? How much was it to get simple income taxes done? $100. $100. I still think that's a lot of money, but actually it's pretty cheap. 10 years later, 2006, we had a president by the name of George Bush. How much was it to get your taxes done? Simple, national average, $175, an increase of 43%. From 2006 to 2016, 10 years later, we had a president by the name of Barack Obama. How much was it to get my taxes done? $176. In 10 years, it went up $1. You know, Barack Obama could say a lot of things about his resume. And then from 2016, again today, 2026, how much does it cost to get your simple taxes done today? $350. That is a 50% increase. You take those 30 years, put it all together, it averages out at 4.9% a year. As I indicated earlier, inflation's at 3% a year. Why did you have a double jump? Remember, Trump won. Trump won, said tax simplification, right? Well, tax simplification turns a 2-page income tax return into an 8-page income tax return, basically, right? Well, somebody's got to get paid for doing it, right? So welcome to 2026 income tax prices. Happy inflation, everybody. To our commercial.
Anthony, one thing though, before you go, why is it that all our local elected officials come out and say, we have free income tax for you if you're under X amount of income? How do they do that?
Well, because for them, for the person, it is free, right? But who pays for it, right? Somebody's paying for it. Your tax dollars. Your tax dollars are paying for it. Now, here in the state of New York, the state of New York has a very interesting program. Of course, that program is tied into the average income here in the city of New York. That amount on average is $75,000 on average. So generally speaking, if you're doing simple forms, they will do it for you for free, for you, right? Because the tax dollars are paying for it, right? This goes with a lot of these tax clinics that I'm not against them, generally speaking, because of course you want to provide these services to the citizenry. In my opinion, you want to be able to do it all, really, in my humble opinion. But you know, again, because it's clinic based, it's only by appointment only. A lot of the times, a lot of people get confused with the advertising. I would still encourage people to use it first if it applies. Again, as TurboTax would tell you, because TurboTax actually did the numbers, 3 to 4 out of every 10 people really apply to do simple taxes, because the other 6 have other factors in their life that require their tax preparation to be more complex.
Okay, well, like Anthony said, let's go to a commercial right now, Mr. Producer, so we can then come back with some local news.
Imagine a media platform that reshapes the conversation, empowers your voice, and redefines the Bronx community. Bronx Post, changing the reality, changing the narrative. For businesses, politicians, and government agencies, we offer targeted advertising solutions that drive results. Amplify your message. Reach the heart of the Bronx and beyond. Our platform connects you to the community. Learn more. Email info@bronxpost.com or call 718-892-5555. Visit www.bronxpost.com for breaking news and updates. Bronx Post, changing the reality, changing the narrative.
Okay, welcome back. Anthony, as you know, Congressman Jerry Nadler is retiring, and there was a poll done by George Conway's campaign, which shows Kennedy scion Jack Schlossberg leads the race to replace retiring Jerry Nadler, according to a poll commissioned by the Conway campaign. Schlossberg was on top choice for 25% of likely voters. Conway, the prominent Trump critic and ex-husband of Kelly Ann Conway, who was a spokesperson for Donald Trump. Now, Conway had 16% of the votes. Tied for last place were Assembly members Michael Lasher and Alex Boris, both netting 11% support for the four candidates, and 33% were undecided. And people were only asked about the four candidates. It was conducted between February 25th and March 2nd. 500 likely Democratic voters in the 12th Congressional District in Manhattan were asked who they would vote for of the four: Conway, Boris, Lasher, or Schlossberg, or some other candidate. They weren't given information about the candidates beforehand, so likely to measure initial name recognition more than anything else. The campaign also declined to share the crosstabs from the poll, which was conducted by polling firm GQR. That means the survey has not been broken down by demographics like neighborhoods or race, or reviewed a full list of questions voters were asked. Now, Boris is endorsed by former Congresswoman and Upper East Sider Carolyn Maloney, while Nadler is backing Lasher. There are a total of 9 Democrats still running, so the other 5 were not mentioned here. And we also have a Republican who was from the Bronx, Max Sapone, who is running in that 12th Congressional District in Manhattan, because he basically has his children going to school there and knows, he almost lives there. He's got a house in Manhattan and a house in the Bronx. Now, moving on to someone else, former Assemblyman Michael Blake, who launched his campaign against Democratic Congressman Richie Torres among a wave of leftist energy following Mayor Zohar Mandami's win. But Blake showed up to a decidedly anti-Mandami event, and his team is now declining to comment on how his attendance squares with his past support of the mayor. Blake was there. He spoke, said Reverend Kevin McCall, a civil rights organizer, who is organizing NYCHA neglect hearings. McCall is advertising the hearings with a box truck that displays the mayor's face, accompanied by the words, "Hi, I am Mayor Mandami. I don't care about NYCHA." A Mandami spokesman emphasized that all renters, including NYCHA tenants, are welcome at his rental rip-off hearings, while the events focused on issues by the city renting in the private market. Staff are available at each hearing to talk with tenants about the rental problems. And we had one the other night here in the Bronx at Fordham University. If you wanted to get in there, you couldn't, because you had to pre-register. And it seems that the City Department of Investigation has found that 6,700 NYCHA units are sitting empty due in part to high renovation costs. McCall said,
Robert, if I might, and I apologize for interrupting, but I think the audience should know. I wasn't at the Fordham University event. I knew about it. I had the opportunity to sign up. I did not doing income taxes, or just I couldn't work it out. But I got a lot of phone calls afterwards, and yes, Fordham University, number one, is very known for, even when they have public events, they're very known for doing it in a gated community type of way. Again, I wasn't there, but from what I hear from other people and yourself, that seems to be a continuous issue. Now, I also understand that Northwest Bronx Community and Clergy Coalition, who has recently changed their name, put together a rally of NYCHA people that attended, that let the mayor know that they were very upset because they felt they were being left out of the agenda. That I guess it was under the impression, at least by some members of the administration, that said this is really just more for renters as opposed to just NYCHA. And I guess NYCHA took it personally. I understand Mayor Mandami tried to clarify it by saying no, it was open for everybody. But I understand NYCHA and other community organizations that work with NYCHA took it personally. And there was I would call it a significant outrage in regards to it. So I think you and the audience should be aware of that.
Okay, now, late Monday night, the Democratic-led chambers of the state legislature unveiled proposed tax hikes on wealthy New Yorkers' corporations at odds with Governor Kathy Hochul's no tax hike pledge. It seems that Mayor Zohan Madami says we need $5.4 billion. City Controller Mark Levine has upped that to $7 billion, and Assembly Democrats want to raise $2 billion by hiking rates on individuals who make more than $5 million a year, $1.9 billion from corporations, $95 million from a crypto mining facility tax. Democrats in the Senate are calling for a $5.2 billion in revenue through methods like income tax hike on top earners and an end to tax breaks for climate polluters. The Assembly is also pitching a 2-year moratorium on gas and electric rate hikes and utility rebate checks of up to $500. Now, each house.
Bob, you're going to have to sit down with a trust advisor so you can hide your millions once they get ready to tax you.
But each house has their own ideas. They have to get together before they present it to Governor Kathy Hochul, who will say, nope, no tax hike. I'm in an election year. I can't afford it. I'll lose the election if I raise taxes. So
you're not going to open the trust. Okay.
All right. Now, Mayor Zohan Madami yesterday celebrated a landmark court ruling requiring a Bronx landlord to immediately address severe housing code violations, including rat infestation and black mold that has plagued one of his rental properties for years. The ruling requires the landlord, Seth Miller, to cough up $2.1 million in fines. And according to the mayor, marked a turning point in the role of City Hall can play in the lives of tenants. He no longer will City Hall turn a blind eye while New York is soft, Mayor Madami said during a press conference at the Bronx courthouse. What Madami did not mention is that the case against Miller was first filed in the Bronx Supreme Court, former Mayor Eric Adams' law department in 2020.
Congratulations to Eric Adams. That's correct.
And the tenants at 919 Prospect Avenue, he had two tenants there with him at this press conference, but the ruling against Miller marked the first time a New York judge has imposed the maximum penalty available under the city's nuisance abatement law against the landlord, and Madami's team said. During yesterday's news conference, Madami lauded the dedicated attorneys from the law department who made this a reality. But he omitted the fact that the case was brought 4 years ago and did not credit the Adams administration. Isn't it surprising that Madami would refrain from throwing the former mayor a bone since leaving office? Adams has lambasted Madami over a variety of issues, breaking with a long-held tradition of restraint when it comes to publicly criticizing one City Hall successor. Now, here's an item that was announced last week by Bronx Borough President Vanessa Gibson. She said, as far as Bronx Week goes, after careful consideration, the difficult decision has been made to place this year's Bronx Week on pause. This was not an easy decision, as this event is more than just a date on a calendar for us in the Bronx. It's a reflection of our borough's culture, pride, and unity. It supports local vendors, showcases our talent, and gives neighbors the chance to connect and celebrate together. Now, I believe you have an update on this, Anthony. Is Bronx Week?
I sure do.
Okay, let's turn it over to Anthony then.
Thank you, sir. I am very happy to announce that the borough president herself announced at Bronx Day in Albany that Bronx Week is still on. Yes, you are correct, Robert. About a week ago, it was announced by the borough president. Her position at that time was fiscal challenges, budget deficits, and probability of problems with city budgets, where she felt essential services was more important than public events. And of course, in general, conversation, nobody would disagree with that theoretically. However, the Bronx Week, the events, and in my opinion, both the parade as well as the festival, which ends at Marshall Loop Parkway, is now at least 25 years in. We're talking about an actual parade that started on the Grand Concourse in the late 1970s that our borough president, Adolfo Carrion, in 2002, brought it to Marshall Loop Parkway, where except for 1 year, actually 2 years, I believe, it's been on Marshall Loop Parkway ever since. So I understand a lot of people were upset about her initial decision. I understand a lot of people on Community Board 7 were upset about her decision. Why she made an abrupt reversal, I'm gonna hope that the mayor might have said to her, if you were worried about the money, I got you covered. That's what I'm hoping, happened, because
I don't think
know
so.
what would be the other reason for the turnaround. But I'm glad we're having it.
Anything else from your end?
Yes, Robert, on my northwest end section of the Bronx, do you know that one of our wonderful colleges, the college that I used to teach, Lehman College, and is a part of CUNY, and CUNY has a basketball league, right? That every college, and we have over 20 colleges in the system, right, has an end of the year tournament. And this week, Lehman College, for the 6th time, won their CUNY championship. Their first 3 championships were in the early 1980s. Their last one was 10 years ago. So it's been 10 years since they've been to the big dance, but they went to the big dance this week and they won 105-56. So I think Lehman College deserves a little bit of congratulations.
Well, Anthony, let's see if you know the name of the team. What's the name of the basketball team?
Robert, I'm going to help you with that.
It's the Lehman Lightning.
Yeah, because if you look at my college ring where I graduated, that's exactly what it says. Lehman Lightning.
I tried to catch him right here. I tried to catch you, and that. Oh,
no. And of course, I have to support the school that I both graduated and taught from. So good to Lehman. We won.
Okay, let's move on to some other news. This is as the NYPD touts its historic low crime rates across New York City. Newly released data shows a disturbing trend in the Bronx. The city's 4th largest borough by population accounts for half of the city's murders so far this year. 36 murders occurred citywide in the first 2 months of 2026, and 18 of them happened, or half of them happened here in the Bronx. Moving on to high school graduation rates, they dipped last year across New York City by just over 2 percentage points to 81.2%, the largest year-over-year decline in more than 2 decades. And today, Mayor Zohan Madami and New York City Department of Transportation Commissioner Mike Flynn announced a citywide pothole repair blitz following a historic winter marked by record snowfall, sustained cold weather temperatures, and a terrible amount of potholes on all the streets here in New York City. It's beginning at 6 a.m. tomorrow. More than 80 New York City Department of Transportation crews will be deployed across city streets and highways in all 5 boroughs, and the city expects to fill thousands of potholes in a single day, with an additional repair blitzes planned in the weeks ahead. Now, since this January 1st, the New York City Department of Transportation has repaired more than 50,000 potholes, they say, maintaining a response time of just over 2 days. Yeah, well, tell that to somebody who calls it in weeks ago. More than 10,000 potholes have been filled in the past week, as the New York City Department of Transportation plans to resurface 1,150 lane miles of roadway this year. If you see a pothole, report it by calling 311 with the location so it can be filled. Now, I wonder how many potholes are on these bike lanes, Tony, because I remember, and those are probably the first ones to be fixed, because I remember when the Grand Concourse was repaved one time, you had the main road and you had the service road. So on the main road you're having 2-way traffic and they're going right next to each other in opposite directions. Now, which do you think were the first lines that were painted on the Grand Concourse?
The first line?
Yeah, the first lines. You would think that middle yellow line would be the first line painted, so traffic doesn't run into each other, right?
Right.
Now, the bike lanes were painted. Then,
Oh, really?
yeah.
Okay.
Then when I brought it up on my blog and showed a picture of the Grand Concourse with no lane markings, all of a sudden 2 days later, the markings went onto the Grand Concourse. But
All
that's
right.
the story. New York State's Court of Appeals division ruled Thursday that could further complicate the city's the affordability crisis. The court ruled a state law that requires landlord to accept Section 8 vouchers is unconstitutional. The court ruling said in part, as a consequence of this law, landlords are now forced to consent to government searches of their rental properties and records. Given that, for the reasons that follow, the source of income discrimination law violates landlords' Fourth Amendment right to be free from unlawful searches. We are constrained to conclude that the law is unconstitutional on its face. So, I guess landlords don't have to take Section 8 anymore. I'm gonna come in with workers who flock to the sanitation garages to answer the call for emergency snow shoveling, but the folks who dug us out might not get paid until the spring. Several emergency snow shovelers who worked during January's big storm have not been paid a month afterwards, and they told the online newspaper, The City, and others who shoveled this 2 weeks ago said payment information was unclear and not discussed. Joshua Goodman, a spokesman for the sanitation department, said shovelers who worked 2 weeks ago may be paid in 2 more weeks, but it's not guaranteed. Last year, it took between 4 and 6 weeks to pay workers, he said. Still, many shovelers said they were happy to make a difference. This will get me out of the house, off the couch, and getting out to be productive in society, one person said.
Oh, that's a bunch of malarkey. But don't get me wrong, $30 an hour, I can give you a nice, speech too. They
weren't getting $30 an hour; they were getting 15 or 17.
The ones that aren't getting paid. What about the ones that were getting paid 30?
That's if they worked over 40 hours. If they
I'm sure people did. I'm sure some people. If you tell me I can make $30 an hour for 40 hours, why am I going to do 10 hours? I'm going to do the whole 30.
Now. We're almost out of time, Anthony. This is going to be my last segment unless you have something else.
Bob, let me just add this if I might. I'll try to be quick, but it's not really a quick thing. I want to wish the audience, as well as our producer, happy 5th anniversary. Bob, you may not know this, but it was 5 years ago this week that Parrot TV decided to have a show called The Politics. And you was not the host, and I was not the host, and Dion Powell, and nobody else was the host. They had, of course, their own host, the wonderful young lady, which I apologize, I can't remember her name at the moment, but I was honored to be the first guest. And I believe I was the guest after that. And then about a couple of months later, that's when the show got reformatted. And of course, I became a host, you became a host, and 5 years later, here we are. But all that started this week. So I thought the audience should know that. And I want to congratulate the producer and Parrot TV.
And that's Mutiu, our producer. Congratulations. And like I said, I'm going to end with a piece that former Mayor Bill de Blasio showed up at his old workplace on Monday, but he wasn't at City Hall to meet with the new mayor. He goes, had a great meeting with Deputy Mayor Julie Hsu. De Blasio wrote in a text to Playbook when contacted about what brought him to the building. Asked to elaborate on what he discussed with Mandami's Deputy Mayor for Economic Justice, de Blasio wrote, getting to know her, learning about her priorities, offering a few reflections about some initiatives during my administration. Great conversation. She's very impressive. De Blasio was very tight-lipped about any additional details about the meeting, but shot down the idea that he might be angling for a job in the Mandami administration. Nope, that's never been a discussion. I'm working on many other things nationally and internationally. I'll leave it at that. Now, I would have asked the mayor, former Mayor de Blasio, a different question not about a job. I would ask him if there was any romantic involvement in there, if he had any interest in the deputy mayor. But City Hall spokesman Dora Pepka said that she did not immediately have many details about the sit down with the mayor and the deputy mayor, the former mayor and deputy mayor, but told Playbook that de Blasio did not meet with Mandami or his first deputy mayor. De Blasio's City Hall visit comes after he acted as a close informal advisor to Mandami during the 2025 mayoral race. I'm taking a tour, de Blasio joked to reporters who asked him what he's doing at City Hall as he's walked into the building. It seems like a really interesting place. Now, I am going to end it there. Anthony, do you have anything else? If not...
No, I just think it's a shame that Bill de Blasio had the opportunity to be a key member of the Mandami administration, and then all of a sudden he turned into a pervert.
Well, let's not say that, Tony. We don't know that for sure.
Yes, we do. That's why he ain't there.
All right. Well, I want to thank you for watching. Anthony, any final words about the show?
Have a good week, everybody. Join us next week.
Anthony's going to bring on one of his friends who is running for a assembly seat in the South Bronx. Am I right on that?
That will be in a few weeks. We're going to have some candidates that will be on my segment when we talk about politics. Some on your segment, of course, when we look at it on a more broad level. So, yes, the next couple of weeks are going to be exciting.
All right, and thank you for watching, and both of us will see you next week right here on Talking Politics with Robert Press and Anthony Rivieccio. Thank you for watching.
Have a good week.
Imagine a media platform that reshapes the conversation, empowers your voice, and redefines the Bronx community. Bronx Post, changing the reality, changing the narrative. For businesses, politicians, and government agencies, we offer targeted advertising solutions that drive results. Amplify your message. Reach the heart of the Bronx and beyond. Our platform connects you to the community. Learn more. Email info@bronxpost.com or call 718-892-5555. Visit www